Well, there is really a war on talent when you think about it. I mean, whether it's retail, wholesale, service providers to the industry, whether it's manufacturers, they're all competing against other industries for good quality talent. And therefore you need a really good pipeline of people coming through. And you need that pipeline to be well educated and you need them to be broad based. So therefore you really need to be able to participate in the war on talent. To do that you need really good leadership and you need a company that's committed to developing that leadership. If you look at some of the most successful companies in the world, evidently they're ones that have the best people. And even if I go back to my career in retail, I might have been an area manager at Woolies or might have been running Myer. And what would happen is you take a store where a manager was there and it was running negative 5%. You put a new manager in and it runs plus 5%. And you might think, well, that's remarkable. But on a $50 million business, then that could well be a swing around of a few $1 million. So it can make quite a significant difference. So there's no doubt that there's a war on talent and there's no doubt that people make the difference. If you look at the top companies on the NASDAQ or the top companies on the ASX or the top private companies, and you compare that list to 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that list is quite different. There are some that have survived, but there are some obviously that have fallen by the wayside. And there seems to be a common DNA that's very important for those companies that have survived. Firstly, they've got to have a strategic intent. And what I mean by that is the ability to have a strategy and stick to that strategy while still being very flexible. Suddenly the market changes, AI arrives, there's a need to change your whole strategy. So they've got to be able to tact, they've got to be able to move their strategy in a direction. Those that stay the path of an old strategy end up becoming an old company. I think the other factors are that firstly people make the difference. There's no doubt that if you've got the quality of people and you've got them well motivated and you've got them well remunerated, then you're going to end up with a very good company as well. I think the third aspect is investing for the future, not just investing for that product today, that supply chain initiative today, but looking at long term. So therefore it means you may have to take a bit of a dump on profit for a year to be able to reposition the company or invest in a certain way. What happens to those that are just trying to do the same thing, more of the same, will get you more of the same. And that makes for quite an unsuccessful business. There are a number of other factors I think that also are pertinent to those companies that have been successful. You've got to think about their inquisitiveness. They're always looking at new markets, new opportunities. They're very creative, they're always trying to create solutions, but most importantly, they're very customer driven. And quite obvious, many companies fail because of their inability to develop a brand that is relevant to the customer, to get constant feedback on the customer and ensure they have a customer-centric industry. I think back when I was quite young, which was many years ago, we were actually at the stage where there was the Family Circle Scholarship and the Uncle Ben Scholarship. And both of those were only applicable to the retail fraternity. One of the biggest differences and common denominators for success for the Joe Berry Award is it's applicable across the whole of the industry, whether it be marketplace, pure play operators, service providers, wholesale, retailer, manufacturers, brokering. It doesn't matter what area of business it is, you get the opportunity to participate. So I think firstly the wide breast grasp of the business is very, very important as well. I think other factors that are important are that it's managed to have some really good people running it and supporting it. Some people passionate, and for many, many years there's always been advocates. I think more recently one of the successes has been the alumni, the ability to have an alumni that works with young people in the industry, that supports them, that mentors them. And so we're developing, for want of a better word, a clan. And that clan is far reaching, the tentacles are now further. And finally, people forget how many people have been involved in the Joe Berry Award. If you take 40 years, let's say average number of applicants might be 50, suddenly you've got 2,000 people. You've got 2,000 people and their friends, their relatives, and then their advocates that are for them. And many of those have moved into senior roles now. So therefore you've actually got that part of that clan spread wide to spread the good word on the Joe Berry Award. I think no matter what company I've been involved in, it's always a difficult task as to where you address your sponsorship and support funds. It's not an easy decision because there are so many opportunities to support charitable endeavours, to support business-based endeavours, and so it is a difficult decision. I think a couple of things that I would take into account when thinking about the Joe Berry Award is that firstly, you're becoming part of an advocacy group for the industry. That industry, which supports nearly 1.5 million people in Australia, which looks after $289 billion in turnover in Australia and represents 32% of the total manufacturing base in this country. And so therefore that industry is very important, and you as a leader have an obligation not only to participate in that industry, but to support that industry. So therefore by sponsoring the Joe Berry, you are really firstly supporting the industry. Secondly, you are sending a message to the people that work for you that you are part of that industry, you're participating. And thirdly, you're sending a message to the people in your business that you want to support young people with ambition, young people who want to get ahead, and you're part of the solution to their future growth problems. One of the decisive advantages is a form of reverse mentoring. So if I'm supporting a young leader in my business, I'll have a bet that they're probably a little bit more of a techno type. They're probably much smarter than you in AI. They're probably more knowledgeable in so many different areas. They know and understand social media better. So you can actually learn from them. And I think we quite often forget the role of reverse mentoring and how importantly you can gain as much knowledge from them as you are when you're supporting them. I think the second thing is what I would call that advocacy that therefore gives you a real, let's say, halo effect on the rest of the industry and the rest of the business. Your people see that you are supporting people in your business. You want to make them better. You want them to develop more competencies. You want them to be more confident in their own ability. And therefore that sends a very loud message that the more you can support them, the more it reflects on yourself as an ability to be a good leader, but it's also developing not only the industry, but the individual and the culture of the company. The margins in retail, the margins in manufacturing have all become under pressure over the last few years. And so obviously we're an industry that doesn't have the ability to luxuriously support overseas trips, mentoring, university courses and programs. And we're trying to compete with industry that has a lot higher EBITDA margin and therefore have that ability to invest. I think a good example of that is the mining industry. So therefore we're trying to compete with so many different industries that therefore being able to invest and support those individuals through things such as the Joe Berry, it gives you the opportunity to be more competitive in that particular set, and more importantly to develop your own business as a unique business, as a unique proposition, while supporting the industry at the same time. Many of the people that have won or been a finalist in the Joe Berry Award over the last 40 years are now in fairly senior roles. I have a couple that I do business with and I keep in contact with, and they've developed their own DNA. They might have set up their own company. They might equally importantly now be a senior executive in a business. And that provides you with a really good networking opportunity. So the first is you've got access to a wide clan or path of people that have a very good knowledge of the industry and a good knowledge of how to grow in that industry. So therefore you get that advocacy, you get the support, but more importantly, you get the opportunity to know good quality people, and normally good quality people develop good quality people. So the people around them are equally as good. So therefore you've suddenly got access to a pool of people, a network opportunity, and more importantly, an intellectual property and an intellect that you may not have access to. So I think immediately it gives you that pull. The second more sort of tactical one is your access to the data that is provided out of the Joe Berry Award. The quality of essay papers and presentations is extraordinary. It's the sort of thing that you would pay a consulting company to develop in many cases. So therefore you've got access to that as well as a supporter of the Joe Berry Award. So that's a great lot of intellectual property and a great lot of intellect that potentially you can use within your business as well. Well, let me say that I'm certainly glad that 40 years ago the quality of people around then was nowhere near the quality of people today, and that's probably why I was fortunate enough to be the first winner. So the first comment I'd make is that we are seeing a lot more confident people, and I think that may be a sign of the times, or it could be a reflection of the way in which the Joe Berry Award is run. A lot more confidence. We're seeing them with a lot more ability to be creative in the way they present, they think, the way they solve problems. We're also seeing a significant improvement in the communication skills that they have. And it doesn't matter whether it's at the award program, whether it's post the award program, whether it's during the presentation or talking to judges, they have that confidence, they have that competence, but also they have that communication ability as well. I think the other factors are that they want to personally grow. They have a hunger inside them to learn things, and good companies have people that want to continue to learn and to understand. And I think that's the sort of DNA that we're now seeing, and that breeds a culture back into their own companies as well. So we're seeing a significant change in the quality, competence, and equally importantly, the ability and the want for people to personally grow, which is what Joe Berry provides them with. I think good leaders and good executives have a combination of both. However, from a technical skill point of view, it's nearly becoming the point of entry. And I think there's no better example of why technical skills are a point of entry, and you need those more enterprise-wide, more wide-ranging, more diverse thinking skills. And that is the future of AI. And if you think of an agent communicating, talking, negotiating, or buying and selling from one agent to the other, which potentially is an important part of the future, the common denominator for that is the human interaction. And I think that human interaction are not the technical skills, it's all the other skills that you've been able to get. So it's the preparedness for the future, particularly in AI world, is going to be very much about not only having technical skills, but having that creativity, having all those other skills that are important to a good executive. I think as individuals we have an obligation to the industry that created us. I was really fortunate to start my career in retail over 50 odd years ago, and from that perspective it gave me a great breeding ground. It enabled me to buy a house, it helped develop and look after my family, and there's got to be an obligation that you have to an industry that supported you. There's also an obligation you have to those people that supported you, some of those early mentors, some of those people that supported you along the way. And so immediately you want to adopt the same principle of supporting people along the way and mentoring people and giving them every avenue to blossom and be successful in what they do. And so therefore it's really important that it's a haggard phrase, but it does describe it well, that you're giving back to the industry that helped you support. I think the second thing is it's incredibly uplifting to watch and see the young executives develop. I think there's nothing that gives me a greater joy than watching somebody develop from an account manager to win the Joe Berry, to become more confident, and they go on to be a sales director and a CEO. And I think that also gives you a degree of accomplishment. But I'm not the only person that's seeing that. Many people connected in the Joe Berry Award, whether it's the sponsors, whether it's the organisers, whether it's the people that come to the dinner, whether it's people that judge, they've all got that same sort of hunger to be able to A, repay the industry that they're in, and B, support young executives. I think everybody from the moment they're put on the earth wants to leave a legacy. That legacy might be to your family, might be to the industry, might be to an individual. But in many cases, you want to be proud of the achievements that you undertake. You want to be proud that you did your best and you tried very hard. And so industry executives that get involved in Joe Berry support young executives, develop talent from within their own industry or within their own environment, I think therefore go about leaving a legacy. And what is it that at the end of the day people want to remember you for? You want people to remember you for the ability to be good, be honest, be faithful, but equally importantly to leave a legacy for those that remember you. And so I think if I look at some of the great industry leaders and some of the great retail leaders over the course of the last 30 to 40 years, and I think of people like Mr. Paul Simons, the legacy that Mr. Simons left was enormous. I'd like to think that everybody wants to be remembered with a similar successful legacy. So it's nothing wrong with wanting that as an individual. It's one of the reasons that we continue to try so hard, no matter how hard things get. It's one of the reasons that we continue to develop and accumulate a knowledge base to be able to share with others. And that is the concept of leaving a legacy. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, but there is always a pot of money to spend. And one of the toughest decisions is where you are going to allocate those funds, whether it be in a human resource area, whether it be in a new plant or a new development, whether it be in a new technological development, or whether you spend it on product and product development and product marketing. In many cases, it's hard to make that call. One of the advantages of the Joe Berry Award and being able to invest in the Joe Berry Award is what I would call the halo effect. The halo effect, it helps the culture of the business. The halo effect is it makes people that work for you want to stay working for you, so it helps with retention. It also helps with attraction. So when people look at a company they're going to join, if they know they're developing and effectively working with their individuals to become better, there's a better chance of them joining that company as well. I think other factors are that it's a further form of brand marketing. So effectively, if Mars or Coca-Cola or Smiths or anyone is a supporter of the Joe Berry Award, then potentially it helps build that brand that they're giving back to the industry. And lastly, I think, remember, we're a competitive industry. And so therefore, if you don't look after those individuals, if you don't support them in the Joe Berry, then someone else will. And suddenly you've got a brain drain, and that brain drain can have a dramatic effect on the future opportunities in the business. Leaders that support the Joe Berry Award will leave a legacy. More importantly, they become advocates for every individual in their business and supporters of every individual in their business. And to me, they are forward thinkers.